My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. It is 12:24 p.m. on June 19th, 2025. Federal Reserve rates hold steady. The Fed maintained its benchmark rate at 4.25 to 4.50%, signaling it may still execute 2 rate cuts in 2025 despite concerns over inflation driven by the gross old man who paints himself orange's tariff policies. Chair Powell described anticipated inflation as meaningful and noted the economy would be data dependent going forward. Markets brace ahead of Fed news. Oil prices eased slightly to just under $75 a barrel, though they've surged 14% recently due to Israel-Iran tensions. S&P 500 ended nearly flat, giving back earlier gains as markets absorb tariff-driven price pressure. Treasury yields steadied after soft U.S. economic data and anticipation of looser bank regulations. U.S. House eyes U.S. response on Iran. The gross old man who paints himself orange has reportedly 2 weeks to make a decision on whether the U.S. will become directly involved in the Israel-Iran war. U.S. officials are reportedly preparing for a possible strike on Iran in coming days, but no final decision has been announced. The gross old man who paints himself orange tightens visa vetting. The State Department is rolling out stricter social media checks for international students, including a requirement to share public profiles to detect possible anti-U.S. sentiment. Court allows the gross old man who paints himself orange to keep control of the California National Guard. A court has allowed the gross old man who paints himself orange to retain operational control of the California National Guard on an interim basis amid litigation over his deployment of troops during LA immigration protests. Here are the top international news highlights from the past 24 hours. The Israel-Iran conflict further escalates. Israel intensified airstrikes on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure, including Natanz, Isfahan, and Iraq, A-R-A-K, and Iran retaliated with missile and drone strikes across Israel, notably hitting Soroka Hospital in Beersheba using cluster munitions. Casualty totals are rising sharply, over 400 killed in Iran, with dozens of Israeli civilians and more than 240 injured in recent strikes. The gross old man who paints himself orange has said he'll decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. will intervene on Israel's behalf, additionally deploying fighter jets to the region while diplomacy continues. Global markets react. Heightened geopolitical tension pushed investors towards safe havens. U.S. dollar and gold strengthened while stocks declined and oil remained elevated near $73 to $75 a barrel. Central banks are adjusting policy while the Fed held rates steady, yet warned of tariff-led inflation. Switzerland and Norway cut rates by 25 BPS, reflecting divergent monetary responses to global uncertainty. Spain pushes back on NATO's spending plan. Spanish PM Pedro Sanchez rejected NATO's proposal for a 5% GDP defense spending target, calling it unreasonable. Spain remains committed to a more modest goal of 2.1%, fostering debate ahead of the NATO summit. UN Human Rights Office may move due to funding cuts. The United Nations is considering relocating to Palais Wilson office in Geneva by mid-2026 to reduce costs following funding reductions largely influenced by the current U.S. administration's pullback from multilateral financial commitments. Hexagon prepares to launch humanoid Aeon, that's what it's called, AEON. A Swiss robotics firm, Hexagon, introduced its latest advanced humanoid robot, Aeon, designed for industrial tasks. Field trials are set to begin later this year, hinting at expanded human-robot collaboration in the workforce.